Welcome to History of 40K, a 40K Lorecast series with John Barsotti and Brad Chester.
This guy.
On today's episode, we're going to be talking about the third edition of the game. And joining us today is another person who Brad is known for basically ever, Snigs. And he's actually the reason Brad plays this game. So welcome, Snigs.
True story.
How we doing?
Doing well. For those who are new to this, History of 40K is a once a fortnight show focusing on the history of the game of Warhammer 40K, tabletop, video games, movies, etc., but primarily focusing on some of the earlier editions of the game, releasing every other Wednesday at 7 a.m. on YouTube and on Spotify. So let's begin. Snigs, it's great to have you here. Why don't you tell us a little bit about you, like who you are, how long you've been playing the game, and we can see some models behind you.
Yeah, that's part of my
many
small collection.
Yeah.
So my name is Jason Snigowski. Everyone calls me Snigs. I've been in the game for a little bit over 30 years now. I started playing in second edition.
Mm-hmm.
I do play competitive, casual. I paint excessively. In fact, my current Age of Sigmar commission has won Best Painted 7 times.
Jesus.
Yeah. Hold on. I do want to tell you guys that I have won Best Painted over Snigs in a tournament, and I have the scroll to prove it. Well, at least I think we do.
Who painted that army, Brad?
Yeah, Snigs painted it. I beat Snigs with his own army in a painting contest.
In a painting competition. Yeah.
Yeah, and most of my stuff only sees a little bit better than tabletop quality because, I have people that come to me on Wednesday night saying they need 200 models painted by Friday.
Really? People do that to you? Weird. It's okay. At least they don't do it very frequently, right?
Yeah, way too often. In fact, I think we started this call with something along those lines.
What?
What armies do you play primarily? I mean, it's been 30 years, so it's not going to be one.
I play almost all of them. Primarily, however, I play Marines, Tyranids, and Tau. Tyranids was my first army in second edition. Marines, close second in third edition, and then Tau I picked up when they were released, which I believe was beginning of fourth.
Yep. All right. Yeah. I mean, and for those who don't know, Jason's Space Marines are Imperial Fists, and I've never seen someone do yellow that well. Like, so candidly, his yellow on black looks really good, even as someone who's colorblind, who's in the upper left corner here, who may not appreciate as much as he should.
I have played so many yellow and black Marines, weirdly enough.
Yeah. Sometimes not knowingly. But so to set the stage for everybody, last couple of weeks we were spending on second edition, and now we're moving into third edition. So second edition came out in 1993, and it was a transition of the game from a role-playing game to a tabletop game. And the roots were largely in like a Warhammer fantasy, but it was originally set up to be a casual and fun game for friends to play around with. I mean, it still is. But GW decided to try and streamline the game a little bit and make it more of, I'm not necessarily competitive, but more fair. I don't have a good word for it.
So I was trying to go for balance, to be honest.
Yeah, that's the right word. Balance is the word. They've not achieved that. We are in 2025, but one of these days, they're almost there. They're almost there.
Not a chance.
Well, we had that little blip at the end of 9th edition where the game was balanced, and they'd already announced a new edition, and so, well, mistakes are made. But so 1998, we get the release of Warhammer 3rd Edition, which becomes really a launching point for the game. For those of you who were not born yet or don't remember 1998, this is an era. It's kind of funny. We're still on the PlayStation 1 and Nintendo 64. There is no Xbox. GoldenEye had been out on the Nintendo 64 for about a year. And I'm just saying this, I know Brad and Snigs played the hell out of that game too, because it was consuming my life. Playing just constantly with my friends, drinking beer in someone's garage while playing, GoldenEye. It's also we're a year out before Napster and MP3s, and I was bored. I looked at the movies. 1998 gave us Armageddon, Saving Private Ryan, perhaps the worst Godzilla movie they've ever made, and an equally bad Deep Impact. That movie was just terrible. But we did get Lethal Weapon 4 and Blade. So, decent enough year. But into this, GW takes their little side project of a game because fantasy, unless I'm wrong, guys, fantasy was still their main piece of this at this stage. And they decided to give it a glow up. So with that, Snigs, I didn't play 3rd edition. I'd quit playing Warhammer at this point. So I'll let you kind of, what was picking up 3rd edition like? Like, first off, what was the biggest changes when you got the new edition?
Jesus.
Well, 3rd edition was probably the most drastic change in 40K history. 2nd edition had, you had to have a full set of dice. You had to have D10s, D12s, all kinds of stuff for 3rd edition. Also, AP wasn't a thing before 3rd edition.
Oh,
3rd edition introduced AP. It did not work the same as it does now.
Yeah.
But 3rd edition was where they actually introduced AP.
Well, that's a big thing. Jump on that just a little bit, because in 3rd edition, you got to use your regular save or you just didn't get a save, period. So AP works so much different than it did before. Because if you were armor save 3 and you got hit with an AP3 weapon, you just died if you wouldn't.
And if it was AP4, you got your full 3-up save.
Yeah.
Huh?
The AP in 3rd edition,
Yeah.
whatever AP it was, that AP was the armor save it negated. So AP5 negated a 5-up save or worse. AP4 negated a 4-up save or worse.
Oh, so it was like the inverse. So it was the opposite.
It
was the invert.
invuln.
Yeah. It's
So
like AP,
right now I have an invuln.
It was the most lethal AP you could have in 3rd edition.
Right. So basically you had to roll. Oh, wow. Ugh.
Yes.
And power weapons just, if you didn't have an invul, you just died. Like the power weapons were a huge deal in 3rd edition. Now you're like, yeah, power weapon, who cares? Power weapons in 3rd edition, if I swung them at your squad, you didn't have an invuln save, every wound just healed a guy. That was another thing. Like 5 things in the game had multiple wounds. Everybody's just a 1-wound guy.
Yeah.
Also true.
I'm going to go out on the limb and say Eldar were broken in the 3rd edition.
Eldar initially were not that good in 3rd edition.
Okay.
They did not get good till
Finally, Snigs agrees. This is the same guy that on a call, playtester call, said that all elves should be 100 points or more individually.
Per model.
I mean, we're going to do an episode on just tracking the amount of times Eldar were broken, and it's going to be every edition. But
they were horrible in 2nd, and they were not great in 3rd.
Okay.
So they did ramp up after that. So
they did
everything
okay.
after that.
Yeah. I can think 7th, 8th, 9th, and 10th, they may have had their moments.
Great. When we finally got spirit stones and stuff, it was a big deal.
So with the new rules, though, how did you learn them? So was there a book? Like, what was the way that the rules were displayed?
So the main rule book came out, I think it was the summer. I think they were still doing summer releases. I picked it up and I read through it, and initially I hated it because 2nd edition had so much complexity, so much that was interesting in it, but the game became something you could play in a couple of hours,
right?
Compared to 2nd edition, where it would take a day to play one game.
And actually one thing, and that's actually an important thing because I left during 2nd edition for exactly that reason. I found it was too complicated to play. The other thing too is there was too much interpretation. It was one thing I didn't like about 2nd edition. It opened the door for arguing. You could try and argue your way into winning something, even though because the rules were ambiguous. So in 3rd, I heard, I wasn't playing, that cleaned up a little bit, where the rules were at least a little bit cleaner. I'm like, no, you can't do this. Okay.
Yeah, I think I'm not remembering the editions really well, but I think 3rd edition was the first time we saw USRs, Universal Special Rules, where a unit was the special rules were given in the main rule book instead of
the codex itself.
Yeah.
Okay.
This made a big deal because when I started to play, Snigs was teaching me how to play, but I had originally had bought the 2nd edition books. And I had watched you play 2nd edition, and I actually made it. I picked it up quickly, but I also thought it was like wildly different because I had watched you play a ton, especially with like your Space Wolf Terminators in 2nd edition. And then we started playing in 3rd edition, and like it was such a wild difference from what I thought it was going to be, because I watched you play with the D12s, the D20s. It was almost like a role-playing game at that point in time with all the tactical things that was going on. And then I started teaching me third edition, and it was, I don't want to say dumbed down, but it was definitely scaled down as far as the decision makings comparatively with second edition Overwatch and stuff like that. So there's a lot less finagling. But I guess also there's a lot less just straight arguing about what you thought the rule was.
Yeah.
But I did think it took me a hot second to grab it and be very skilled with it, because I was just getting my head kicked in, because some of my friends are dicks and like to see me get crushed all the time. They're like, hey man, that was a bad move, and let me show you why, because I'm getting Chuck Norris.
To be fair, you just had open heart surgery, so they didn't want you getting too excited by winning. So they're helping you out, man. Like, I don't know, what if Brad gets excited and his heart rate goes up? He could pop a pig artery or whatever the hell was in you at this point. You know, let's keep him mellow in the corner by just having him lose every second.
Well, to add to that, I think one of the most iconic moments in third edition was when Brad finally decided to start playing after he had learned for a while.
Yeah.
And bought his first box of Chaos Terminators. That night was amazing. I don't think that anyone who was there stopped laughing.
I think I've talked about this, but
yeah, you have.
I'm just gonna throw it out there again. Yeah. I'm getting my models, and it is a busy. The game room is just packed with people. It's our local place.
We'll talk about that in a second. I do talk about the game room in a second.
But like I come up and I buy 5 Chaos Terminators, and everybody's staring at me and they're just waiting. I'm like, what the hell are you idiots all waiting? And they're just like, yeah, just do your thing. And I grab the 5 Terminators. I get super excited because I'm like, I had read all the fluff. The Terminators are going to come out and destroy everybody. And I open the box and I pour out, sprues. And I think I'm getting 5 Terminators done.
Yeah.
And I start just raging out. And Snigs has been waiting next to me the whole time and literally pushes me out of the way and just starts putting the models together as everybody goes, this is what we were waiting for, because we knew your dumbass thought you were getting 5 Terminators, and we'd be so mad about it as soon as you got them.
Well, the game room is actually an important thing to me, because I think this is something I want to talk more about. Is modern day, we have the internet. Like, you can join a Discord, you can find a play group. We were talking about this with Brian on second edition. This is not the case in 1998. I mean, like cell phones are. I'm just going to go ahead and say it. Are you a drug dealer? No? Okay, you don't have a cell phone. It's 1998. Sorry, Brad. But it was cell phones, pagers. We didn't have this level of access to people, so it was all game stores. And so the game room, how old is the game room now? 40 years?
The Toledo game room is 37 years now. They started on the east side of Toledo.
Yeah.
They're at their current location. They've been there for, I think, 15 or 20 years.
Yeah.
So they've moved a few times, but yeah, they've been, I think, 37.
And so when you guys would go, like, how many people would be playing? Because it's like, if you wanted to go and learn 40K back then, did you make Brad play because you needed people to play with, or was Brad just a hang along?
We were spoiled back then. I was just one of many on that. Mm-hmm. But we were thinking of it. I like the fact that you said the internet on that, because we had a really good tournament scene, like right away, with yourself, myself, you had Sparks, Pete, and the boys, and we were crushing because of the fact that we came up with a lot of shit. Snigs, his role, and still is his role, is to find the weirdest stuff ever and find it before someone else does, and that's been the case for the last 30 years. So.
And so in the game room, this is an area, we're talking about nostalgia for people. I want to talk about saying like what it was like kind of picking this thing up. So you go into so in the game room, it's this piece of it becomes a community where you're playing into, and then it's just different people trying to teach each other. Just tell me the dynamics of it, of like, how does the games happen? Was it pre-planned? Do you just kind of get there? What was the way that you would learn the game and play the game together?
Well, the game room in itself has always been a staple in the community where you can just always show up and there was always someone there looking for some type of game. I think if I remember correctly, the way I met Brad was we both were card floppers initially.
Yep.
and we were playing cards.
Card floppers and D&Ders.
I don't know what card flopping is. I'm sorry. What's card flopping?
Competitive card games.
Magic the Gathering.
There it is. Okay. So not gin rummy. Got it. Okay.
No.
Yeah.
No. And then we were also D&D guys. And so like we met from there. And then I picked this up. I had been watching you guys play miniature games for a long time at this point.
Mm-hmm.
But like the game room, for instance, on a Friday night, the game room would be packed. I mean, there'd be 20 plus people playing 40K.
Yeah.
That's wild to me. It's just wild. I mean, I was having to find places like
as I'm saying, we were a little bit spoiled. I mean, it's the same thing about the fact that we're at the game store. I thought everybody's game store was the same. And this is later on in fifth, but like I had decided that I was going to play all combat weapons. And people are like, where the hell are you going to get 20 Melta and 20 Plasma? I'm like, I'm just going to go walk down to the game room. Isn't everywhere like this? They're like, no, nobody has this, man. I'm like, oh, well, I'm going to hand Snigs 40 plus combat weapons and point at them until he puts them on on the models. But like, they're like, no one else has that. I'm like, I just figured, because I don't know other game store. That was always my local game store.
Yeah. Well, and that's like, I think that's a key thing we talk about this era is because again, we're talking about picking up a game in the late 90s and this is still a community game, but back then the community is basically what you can see in a room and that becomes the whole thing. So, at this stage again, fantasy is still the bigger one. So I assume people are still playing mostly fantasy and then Warhammer starts and 40K starts kind of picking up from there. As that pickup happens, so what I actually don't know, again, sorry, I am ignorant as hell to this. Is it the same board, Fantasy and 40K, or is it different boards?
Back in second, third edition, Fantasy and 40K were on the same board. They were both 6 foot by 4 foot.
Okay.
But like back then, we were playing 1750, if I'm correct, when we started.
Yep.
The 1750 on that. We had so fewer factions back then too. For instance, third edition Necrons had a Lord, a Lord Warriors and
Immortals.
And Immortals. Yeah. That was it.
I mean, Great Tide, it works. I mean, third edition Orcs, I think. Well, third edition Orcs were all the guys who were in second. So your Orcs, your Tyranids, your Space Marines, your Eldar were a bit more fleshed out.
Squats.
Oh yeah, squats. Forgot about that. R.I.P.
Yikes.
Maybe. Who knows? I can't even keep track of squats anymore. Like the Votann Codex is coming out. We'll learn when it comes out. Like, are they squats? Let's see.
I mean, one of the things in second, I mean, this stayed the same for a hot minute, but like if you were playing a Marine army, you didn't have successor chapters back then. You played that army. You also had to have the army painted. There wasn't your own paint scheme back then. It was. You're playing Ultramarines, your guys better look like Ultramarines. That's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and actually on the building and painting, on the hobby side, because again, we'll talk to Brad, can't help here, but like for you, Snigs, Brad's painting and copying involves you. Like I would walk to Snigs and then I would later collect painted, completed models. But the building and painting, we talked about this in the second edition a little bit. The directions for them. So first off, you're still in the mix of pewter. It was plastic at this point, correct?
Yeah, but the plastic was horrible, single form.
Yeah.
So it was full units. It wasn't like we had today where we assemble it. It was just a plastic.
If you can find some of the old standard single form Marines, they all stood like this with the bolter right in front of them.
Yeah.
Every single one.
Yeah.
And they were awful. They were, there was no variance to them at all. There was no customization, anything. And then all the metal units, you had to know how to pin. You had to know how to file.
I was about to say, you were breaking and bending and all kinds of stuff with the metal miniatures.
Well, because this is actually one of the questions I want to ask you is like back in this day, the pewter and then the resin, which one was better?
Pewter.
I thought so. Yeah, that's the problem because everyone hated pewter, but it was the best. I still have pewter in my house, like from 1994, but still,
the Forge World resin was horrible. It was so awful to work with.
Oh yeah, I mean it's great to have a resin that super glue won't stick to. That was helpful.
Yeah.
What's your favorite third edition army? because I know you played a couple, because I remember I still remember that stupid bus of idiots, but
that would be it. Salamanders.
God, that army made me so angry. Snigs had an entire army, and he put 1,000 characters, and this is back when you could only attack. You had 2 HQ choices, but he took the 2 HQ choices that had people that attached to them. Yeah. And he had them in a Land Raider, and that was back when Salamanders had, when you shot Melta, it was 2d6 added to the strength of the weapon, except unless you were shooting a Salamander Land Raider, when you only got a d6, which means you could only do a result on a 6-up with no reroll.
So it was invincible.
Yeah. So he would drive this around, and one of us rolls pretty goddamn crazy. Only one of us in this 3-part uses rerolls a lot, commonplace for a 6-up. Because why wouldn't you? Because there's like a 85% chance if you reroll a die of getting a 6, right? But he just would park this, and a bunch of the guys had 4-up invulns, and then I would just spend the entire day trying to kill 1 transport's worth of guys and fail miserably because stupid Earl with a Thunderhammer and a Storm Shield kill half my army.
Well, no, this is one of my favorite parts. We talk about the additions. All right, we talk about, we've talked about the phases of what was the best part of the 3rd edition coming out? Like, what was the best change for you?
The best change from 2nd to 3rd was removing Overwatch.
Okay.
Overwatch, it was still in the game, but it was insanely different. Overwatch in 2nd, you could, in the movement phase of your turn, put a unit on Overwatch, and what that meant was it could shoot during your opponent's turn. In 3rd edition, Overwatch was only done when you were being charged.
Okay, yeah. So it's funny because I played a lot of XCOM back in the day, and that's how it was in XCOM in those games where you would set a unit. Like, I had no shot, so I'm gonna set myself for Overwatch, and then if you move anywhere I can see you, I'm shooting you. It's a very good mechanic, but it's also annoying as hell and slows things down to a crawl because your opponent has to figure out, well, if I move and all this stuff. So that was when it became part of charge. Okay, that's a good one.
Here's one of the wild things, and a lot of people forget this in 3rd edition because there's so little constraints on your composition of your army. Mm-hmm. Back in 3rd edition, you couldn't play a named character unless the tournament specifically told you that you could bring a named character. Like if you're trying to play an Eldar or something like that, they just weren't allowed.
Well, we'll get into Forge World at some point about like, hey, you want to see the game break real quick? Some of those rules. And that's actually what I was going to do. What's the worst part of 2nd edition? And I'm assuming it was some of these things, some of the character powers.
2nd and 3rd edition had a couple of really bad things that I did not enjoy. One of them was the detachments. You were only allowed to bring 2 characters, 6 troops, 3 elites, 3 fast, 3 heavies. I did not like that. I thought that was too constraining on, individual builds and things like that. And then another thing was the Thunderhammer. The Thunderhammer had an effect with it that said, if I hit you, you fought last in the next round.
Well, let's throw in real quick. We had one of the stats
weird
back then was initiative. It did not. Now it's just you get charge and fights first and stuff. You used to fight on what is your initiative, somewhere between 1 and 10. You would have a super fast unit, and if you get hit with that Thunderhammer, you would go down to initiative 1. It auto stuns you if you got hit by it.
That's dumb. I mean, it makes sense in the idea of the Thunderhammer is getting hit with a Thunderhammer definitely would fall into the category of things that suck, but it is annoying as hell. So it would be, but we say it was the next phase. What would happen is, so if I had a Thunderhammer and I charge you, I hit you, it's that phase. Or does it carry over?
It actually prevented you from attacking that phase, and you didn't attack till the next phase.
Oh,
yeah, because you only attacked on, you basically went down the line. It's like initiative in D&D.
Yeah,
where you go, hey, let's go. So if you had a Thunderhammer and you attacked on initiative 7, and they were initiative 6, or sorry, they were initiative 6. Yeah, you would skip because. He would go down.
I hit you with a Thunderhammer. You don't get to fight me this turn. And if we're still in combat next turn, you fight last.
Initiative 1.
Nice.
And then you had weird things. So if you charged into the cover and you didn't have grenades, you would also fight at Initiative 1. So everybody would always, half the armies would park right up on the edge of forests and things like that. So you'd have to charge and have at least one model in forest. I actually like that a little bit because I feel like right now terrain is walls or not walls.
Well,
so
it's just funny because you answered a question to me of like why I've seen so many 3rd edition models with Thunderhammers, and now I understand why I've seen that. It's because there just was no other option. That's devastating. All right, that's fun. The kind of natural next question there is around armies. So third edition was out for about 4 years. Is that right? 4-ish years. What
4
was
or 5 actually?
Yeah. What was so at launch? Obviously. So what was the best army at launch?
There was not the resources available that you see nowadays.
That's a good point. Yeah.
So you had to rely on a local area to determine what was best. In our area, some of the strongest armies were different. We saw Tyranids doing really well. We saw Marines doing really well. But if you left our area, that was not always the case.
Interesting.
Meta's just to be, because we started traveling for tournaments and we'd leave the Midwest or even the closest of, different Midwest areas. And you'd get like a wildly different meta. Like, I mean, for the longest time, the West Coast played a completely different game than anything that was, based on the East Coast, basically Midwest in. They had their own completely different meta of how they played and everything else. Also, the final rulings on things were, still TO based, but they were like the rules would be kind of wildly different. You'd have to figure out what they were going to rule on stuff before you went, because you could just think that something was going to happen and have it be completely different back then. And
that's a wild thing, because again, this is 1998. The internet, I think, is just starting. It's going to be AOL. I think at this stage, we don't have the community you can go into to kind of get clarification. So it is going to be locally determined, which kind of becomes, we talk about the best armies and then of course, worst armies. A lot of that, I guess to your point, is going to be determined by, well, what are the rules that we're playing by? For example, how many HQs can I bring?
Well, think about it also.
Characters.
Well, there's a big thing on this also, what Snigs was talking about not liking the Force org chart, because you would also have a composition score. So you had a comp score is one of the big parts. And that's back when overall was the trophy. You know what I mean? So best, your battle points was just one of the things you had.
What is a composition score?
Composition score, that's what's going to go into the Force org. Composition score was, you had 2 different ways to score comp. One, the tournament, the TO would just rate you on what your comp was. And usually you'd have a rubric for the comp. So like you had X amount of troops, did you have full squads, things like that. Okay. But every single round though, you had a sportsmanship and a comp score for each round. So you got 10 points per round in comp and sportsmanship. So like your opponent could just be like, I don't like this. Because a lot of times they were looking for a theme. Theme and comp were a big deal back in the 3rd edition. You had to have, think about 3rd edition. You had to have a display board, which Snigs loves traveling with. He's a huge fan of it. We just got into this argument the other day.
This many display boards in my life.
Well, you had to, the points did say you had to have a display board. You had to have a little piece of fluff that you wrote. It was big. Paint score was big on this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like for normal armies, he would always get 1,000,000 points more than me because he probably has best stuff. You know what I mean? You'd have to work with that. So like we had all that, plus you had the comp. But like a lot of armies, especially as we went along, because the editions lasted a lot longer than now. But one of the big things, if you recall, as people got codexes, if something was broken, it was just stayed broke. But if you remember, like when Eldar actually got powerful is when they put out the Craft World Eldar book, where you could bring, like for Giltan was all of the aspect warriors were troops. And then Tyranids had, I can't remember, Tyranids had the high fleets, where some of them were super broken because you could bring all big guys, as your troops and stuff like that. So some armies had like wildly different ways they could play the game, and they could score way better comp than you could.
I just more laugh at this because I love the idea of comp. I think that, as someone who came back to the game in 8th edition and had to watch people play Magnus and Mortarion side to side like they were best friends, there's an element where I'm like, it was kind of like, hey, that doesn't make any sense. Why is that occurring? It's kind of nice being going back. I don't think we should go back to comp scores fully, but it was kind of nice to have a period of time where they're like, yeah, you can't do that. Or 7th edition.
Formations.
But something that Brad left out on composition is that also part of composition was that they would rate whether your army seemed like a codex storyline lore based army. So if you brought 3 dreadnoughts or 3 devastator squads, that's not what an army has. You lost composition points. So this overloading on overpowerful units, you just didn't see.
Just letting you know, I used to get a lot of bad comp scores. Also, that stupid bang bus woot, woot, running in with the thing also got Snig. I think Snigs and I went to, I can't even remember the tournament, but we went to a tournament and both of us got 0 on comp, even though we won all our games.
So because the Invincible Land Raider full of invincible soldiers people didn't care for.
Yes.
One of the things about comp score is that they required that your army be 50% troops. In order for that list to work when I made it, it was 49.6% troops. And they didn't
want to round up.
They didn't give it to me.
I also, for our listeners, Snigs teaches math, and so this is one of the reasons he's so good at this stuff is he can be like, yeah, I know all of my numbers. When he says he was 49.6%, he probably did it on a piece of paper.
Probably.
Yeah, I know they had calculators back then, but it'd be like, I got this.
And it's still better though. But one of my favorites is listening to someone tell you probabilities about something, and then you going, "It's better when you drink." But
go up. I mean, it's all math there.
Yeah, drug stinks telling someone that they're wrong is one of my favorite things because he shows up with basically a presentation about, and this is why you're wrong.
So. While we're talking about this too, another thing I wanted to discuss was phases of the game. So when we came into 3rd edition, second edition, the psychic phase was not the most enjoyable thing. And when we got into 3rd, did they clean those phases up a little bit to make them actually more single functional, or was it still kind of a mess?
The phases were still kind of a mess. They were luckily still very defined. Movement did what it was supposed to do. Psychic was there. It was, depending on the army, either overpowering or just not existent. Shooting, charging, assault phase. It was all still basically the same.
But remember, for everybody that's watching that plays modern 40K, there was no pre-measuring back then.
That also is true.
I hate that. Sorry.
You could not pre-measure charges. You could not pre-measure shots. There were guess weapons back then. There were templates back then. All things that have gone away, thankfully. And one of the big phase things that have gone away is that at the end of your turn, you had the morale phase.
Yes. And that thing in 3rd was a little bit rougher than I think it was.
Brutal.
3rd edition morale was horrible.
Let's talk about that. If you fell back in 3rd edition, so Snigs charges me, or we're just fighting, and I fail my morale, I now fall back. We both roll a d6 plus our initiative score. If he is it equal, it was, I don't remember if it was higher, whatever. If he
equal or higher,
equal or higher, you run down the army. So like, if he charged me with one guy, and I have a 10-man squad. Now this has happened quite frequently. He'd bring
more than a few times.
Yeah, he'd bring a tough guy and kill one of my guys, just one, and a 10-man squad. I fail my morale, and then we roll off initiative. That one guy would chop down the other 9 guys. Just no saves, no anything.
Oh, so not okay. So not a you fall back and then have to do this. Just because he killed one guy, morale is therefore triggers. How was in 8th edition? So then it triggers.
Let's go a little bit further into that to
Please.
kind of expand on that. So let's say a single guy charged a 30-man orc unit. you subtracted the number of deaths from your leadership for that morale test. So if I killed 7 guys, you were -7. And
Now,
then if you failed,
orcs had their own thing though, because the orcs would actually just take a number of deaths. But like if you charged into bigger armies with bigger units, that's one of the reasons why Tyranids was so busted back in the day, because Tyranids did ignore that.
Yeah, that's a good point. So 5-man squad, you come in, you kill 3 of them. The odds are they're going to fail the morale.
You just wipe them.
And then, so the idea is that then that guy runs away, and then your guy chases them and cuts them down while they're running away.
Yep.
Yes.
Thematically, I love it. Gameplay, why I hate it. Yeah.
Another thing is that during the when you did that, if you fell back, say you don't get chopped down, you run away. As long as someone's within 6 inches of you, you couldn't rally. So you could walk people off the board. So if I'm in Snigs' deployment zone, charged over there, and I run away from him, a lot of times you would have a vehicle or a rhino, one guy that's left in a squad would just walk next to your unit as it runs away, so it can never rally, and you just run off the table.
Okay, so rallying, by the way, hasn't been in the game since 7th or 6th edition. So to rally means that you are battle shocked, just like we have today. And then I would rally. Did I have to roll to rally, or I automatically rally?
So it's not battle shocked.
Okay.
Battle shock is a completely different idea.
Yeah.
If you were broken, if you failed your morale, you had to move your full distance to get off the board.
Yeah, if you're infantry, you would roll 2d6.
Oh.
Jump pack and cavalry would roll 3d6, and you'd have to move in a straight line. And if somebody made it
straight line to a board edge or to your deployment zone?
To your deployment zone.
Okay, so you basically run.
But also, if somebody could make it so you couldn't fall back, like you just put people right behind them, they also would auto die.
Yes.
Oh, so if I'm behind you, and you have to fall back, and you can't fall back, you just die.
Yep. Yes. Unit was gone.
Yeah, I could see. I actually think I know why Brad liked this edition so much.
It was very good for high movement armies.
Yes.
Yeah. It's also it's janky stuff where I can set something up. It's
layered all the time.
Yeah.
And
so
you could
basically Soul Burst before Soul Burst. Now I see why you were so happy with Soul Burst. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you could do a lot of stuff, but it was so nasty because you could do all these things to walk people off the board. So you'd have effectively your meat and potatoes units, but then you would have some random stuff that was fast that would, a lot of times somebody would break, and then you would just, again, you would escort them off the board because they could shoot while they were falling back, but it was at negatives or something. I can't remember exactly what that was.
And that makes sense because they would fall back in their turn, and then in your turn, you'd just move closer to them. And since you're too close to them, therefore they can't rally. So then they have to do it again to get further back. And basically, so effectively, if my movement's higher than your movement, that unit's just going to die unless you kill the unit I have chasing you. I didn't realize you could chase someone off the board. And this is also a time where you had less models. So
it was one of the
add up.
I missed that a little bit because of the fact that you had this like game inside the game where you had people just trying to make sure you couldn't rally, and then your opponent would have to go after things that they didn't want to because a rhino or one jump pack guy is currently escorting 2 or 3 units off the board.
This part you missed, but Void Grenade you're against bringing back, or Void Mine. It's like my favorite thing. That's my absolute favorite thing in the game. How about we have something in the game that just destroys models for no reason, and you have to run away from it, hopefully. Perfection.
What did we play? When did we? Was 3rd edition still just only pitch battle, 12 inches deployment?
Yes. Yeah. And 3rd edition also did not see the inclusion of the vortex grenades.
I know. It's been gone for a long time. I want to bring it back. I'm hoping 11th edition. We're about a year out. Maybe it's coming back.
But then we have to bring templates back. And
we're bringing back 1 template and 1 scatter die for one mission. One template, 1 scatter die for 1 mission. It's worth it just to watch people cry. Bunch of PTSD players in the corner, just like this is like 1995 all over again.
Well, let's bring back D weapons then.
Oh yeah.
No.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm with Snigs. I think D weapons were awesome. I also think guess weapons were great. I mean, that's the thing. I don't like templates, but I do like.
I'm bringing back this. Speaking of templates and D weapons, Snigs and I playing game. He has 5 Dark Eldar warriors in the corner. 5 Dark Eldar warriors in the corner. I have 2 giant flamers, which we talked about this. If you had the same AP, AP that was better than your save, he doesn't get one. I have a better AP than his save. I have 2 templates. I get 5 dice, twin linked. So if I fail, I get to roll them again. I have 2 sets of 5 dice. I have to get a 2 on each one. I kill 4 guys each time. And so Snigs now has 2 units that are taking the game because they are troops. And troops auto took things from everybody if you didn't have troops. In his turn, I have units all over the board. He goes, I'm going to shoot my D weapons, and goes, I need a 6 to hit this one. And if you get a 6, you don't get a save. And he does this to my Wraith Knight that he can only hit on a 6, hits it, then 6 Ds it out, hits what was the other one, the indirect guy?
It was the Phantom or the something.
Yeah, just D's 2 things out after
Warp Hunter.
Yeah, Warp Hunter. After not make anything, just called shot to like 3 6s in a row. Picks up my stuff after I can't kill his guys. I'm like, I thought I was winning, but apparently you just said no, and that was that game. I'm like, cool.
I like weapons like that. I mean, I probably should, but like the Tau railgun in 9th or 8th edition, was it, where it was like, this hits you, ignores invulns, like a ton of damage, just don't roll a 1. That was I like those weapons. I think the game's fun with those weapons. Just don't put them on a Space Marine as a bolter, which is what GW always ends up doing eventually. That power creep becomes an issue. But
they did do that. It's a 7th edition special limited run.
Oh God,
Marine.
Terrible.
It was a single Marine guy. You could include him in your unit. I think it was 6th or 7th edition. And he had a D weapon.
Yeah,
as
of course,
a single Marine.
Of course, yeah. That's what always ruins it. We have fun, and it's like, oh, it's on this special thing, and then eventually you're like, oh, so just everyone has them now. Yeah.
Well, third edition. One of the things I do want to throw in for everybody is that we got a ton of rules. We talked about this the last cast with it. White Dwarf, you had to have it if you're a competitive player, because the competitive rule set came out in White Dwarf, like full armies, updates to your armies and things of that nature. And it was so funny because you used to have to show up with a library, basically. You had to have articles and every printouts. If you ran Forge World, you had to have printouts of stuff. You had to have your White Dwarf article, your codex.
Hold on. I just want people to say, when we talk about printout, this is either dot matrix or the photocopier at the library. Which was not ideal.
It was always photocopy, and it was a photocopy that looked like the Bigfoot.
Images. Yeah,
it was so blurry. You just had to believe someone. You're like, I don't know what your rule is. Well, clearly it's this. You're like, what are you talking about? That's an abstract painting.
Yeah. Did you photocopy your face and you're saying there's text there? There's totally text there. I know what you're talking about, especially if the White Dwarf happened to have color in it.
Yeah. But in saying that, also in the White Dwarfs, they had army rules. They had, they released specific army rules. They included things like the custom vehicles for orcs. That was all through a White Dwarf, and they kind of got away from it, but they were literally play testing army ideas before they released the codexes in those White Dwarfs, which could be a great idea today to get a wider play test.
Yeah. You got basically optional rule. I don't remember what they used to call them. Because remember the Chaos Cycle? Chapter approved, yeah. They called them chapter approved. So like the TOs, by the way, another reason why you had to find out, a lot of times you were calling people on this is this allowed? Because you show up with an army and they're like, yeah, we're not using that at all.
So the last thing I kind of want to close on before next week we do more in-depth dive into units and that kind of stuff is, all right, we talked about tournament play and things were allowed, not allowed. Why was that? So why did we see in 3rd edition? Because we talked about the rules becoming cleaner than 2nd edition, but then we hear a lot about how tournaments would say, oh yeah, this is a yes, that's a no. what was the rationale behind that, and kind of how did it function?
Well, the big tournaments at that time were mostly ran by GW.
Okay.
So GW had overall control on what they were allowing in their events, and most local areas followed what GW would allow.
Okay.
However, as Brad mentioned earlier, the West Coast was a completely different animal.
Yeah, it's Wild Wild West.
They were doing a lot of different things. They were playing with a lot of different rules. This is what kind of led into the whole ITC, which in later editions, ITC had their own rule set and FAQ, which kind of became the staple and the guideline for all tournaments.
Yeah, but in third edition, when we talk about things not being allowed, it's like named characters weren't allowed. Why?
Named characters weren't allowed because some of them were excessively overpowered. Some of them were just ridiculous in regards to their strengths and abilities.
Okay.
A lot of them were just unkillable.
Well, you say not allowed, by the way, real quick, because Snigs made a good point. So GW ran these up.
Yes.
And so GW wouldn't allow their own units.
Correct.
I just needed to have that clarification.
There was a lot of characters, straight characters that just were banned on that.
Yeah.
And the thing is that they would also, again, you could bring some tough stuff, but like if you brought too tough of stuff, you would get penalized unless you had one of the armies that could abuse it. So it was a weird tournament scene because like you could bring your super fluffy army and you say you would score really big, but you also had the chance to get Thunderdomed by somebody that wasn't.
Yeah.
And some of the characters, storyline wise, were just disproportionate to everything else in the game for the points that they had.
Oh, that would make sense. Okay. Because this is still, I mean, that's the problem. This is something that we've talked about GW before. They're trying to balance a narrative against a competitive. And this was really their first foray into that at a time when Black Library is just starting up too. So you're getting a bunch of kind of overlapping problems coming at the same time because Brad's buddy Eldrad.
I was just going to say, Eldrad cast 3 spells and his spells were gross.
Yeah.
And yeah,
but he had a glow up though in some of the early books. So people are talking about how he's like the greatest psyker and one of the best and most powerful Eldar in the whole galaxy. So they're going to write rules accordingly. And then, oopsie, this guy's YOLO swagging entire armies. So,
well, another side point on that is GW was trying to balance lore with the game. So they did not want to go to a tournament and see 15 armies with Eldrad.
Yeah. Oh, that type of balance. I didn't even think of it from that perspective. It was just the, good. All right. I like that. So that was,
because their events did influence like their Black Library books. It did influence their White Dwarf articles. So the one year we went out to the Baltimore GT, there were some horrible things that happened at the GT, but
it's Baltimore. Worse things have happened.
It was the worst thing I ever saw at an event.
Yeah.
But the point is that the storyline from it and what they wanted is they didn't want to see Eldrad's leading 15 different armies at this incursion. No, Eldrad wouldn't have been there. Yeah. Eldrad would have been guiding from afar. And so,
And I just, wow, I have to give them credit. I like it's like anything with GW does in this era. I like the thought behind it. Unfortunately, it does create some issues where you sold me an Eldrad and now I can never use my Eldrad. But whatever. Yeah,
it's also people that had a bunch of like big squads for troops. You had to bring full squads for troops. And then if you had other people who didn't, so they could get away with because you had to fill out your 4 sword.
Or if you're Necrons, it was a little bit easier.
They only,
exactly.
At the time they had troops.
I have troops now. What else did you bring? They don't have any other options.
They had the flying croissants.
Did they have them? Those were available in second or third. Sorry, in third edition, you had the croissants.
It was the third or fourth. That's where they came out.
I was saying.
Yeah, I just think. But actually, I kind of like that as a place for us to break here because what I want to do next week is I actually want to dive more into some of the individual units and the data sheets in third edition. So, like Snigs, we're going to use you for this, obviously, as well, about like how you would grade a unit off a data sheet, what mattered in the data sheet, and then dive into some of the actual units and armies themselves and how it would work and how it was structured.
It's wild because we'll get into this next week. It's just things like invuln saves were so valuable back then.
Well, and like I want to spend a lot of time on characters because characters in third edition had the glow up where it was this piece of like, oh, this is a named character. Oh, so he's kind of almost a god. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and to expand on that, the characters in third edition also had one of the largest data sheets in the codexes because it would have all the additional war gear you could buy. And there was not really a restriction on how many things you could buy them.
Just rolling around with what's the D&D bag, Brad?
Bag of holding, baby. Bag of holding.
They've always got a bag of holding.
We had someone who played at the game room with us who
John White. Shout out to John White.
He had a character that literally bought every piece of war gear.
Every single
had
one.
all of it.
Yeah.
All of it was modeled on his character.
Yep. Had a very small army, and you're like, why do you have so few guys? And then you look through his list and you went, did you buy every piece of war gear? He's like, yeah. He's like, it's on the model. Yeah. It just looked like a guy with stuff sticking out everywhere.
It's on the model. And was the model good?
No.
Oh, no.
Oh, that's too bad then. It's more fun when they do that and they're just like, and this guy is just, so he just had something that was fun. All right, good for him. I think that's good for now. I think that's in a fortnight. I'm still getting used to saying that. We'll all get back together and we're going to review some of these models individually and kind of do more of these like trips down memory lane. But until then, thanks Snigs again for joining us. And this has been John Barsati and Brad Chester.
This guy.
See you all in 2 weeks.